Hello everybody, it's Julia here from the Highly Sensitive Tarot, and I'm here today with, I hope, quite an interesting video really. I've wanted to make this video for quite a few days now, but I've just been plagued with migraines really. I think I love the summer, but I don't think the summer weather likes me anymore. I find it just sets off just these migraines that just run into each other really day to day. So yeah, anyway, it's taken me a while to get round to doing this video, and I don't know how it's going to go, to be honest, because when I first thought about showing you these decks, I hadn't really thought it through, I suppose, of how long it would actually take to show you 4 different decks and compare 4 different decks. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how long it takes me talking, how long the video is, and then I'll make a decision really on whether I'm going to continue this series and work my way through the whole deck, or perhaps just show some interesting cards, my favourite cards. But I think today I'm just going to work my way through the piles that I've got here and just sort of see how long it takes me talking. So anyway, what we've got here is we've got the Before Tarot, we've got the Radiant Wise Spirit Tarot, which is the normal RWS deck, we've got the After Tarot, and we have the Tarot of the New Vision at the end. Now, this Radiant Wise Tarot Spirit, and this is the box that it comes in a nice sturdy box. I've had that deck for a year or so now, and the Tarot of the New Vision is a deck I've had for many years actually, but not really used a great deal, just because, I don't know, I was happy with my normal Rider-Waite-Smith decks, I think, so I was sort of curious about it, but I haven't used it particularly to read with. I don't have the box for that anymore. It came in a little box and it had a little guidebook, one of these kind of things. The Radiant Wise Spirit Tarot has quite a nice chunky little book that comes with it. The Before Tarot, and this was quite exciting actually, because although I'd said I wasn't going to buy any more decks for a while, I was window shopping on eBay, as you do, just looking at used decks, and somebody was selling the Before Tarot and the After Tarot as used, and the Before Tarot was just in this box, in a little tuck box, with another little little black and white booklet that comes with it, which is not a lot of use actually. I kind of now regret a little bit really not buying the Before Tarot full price, because the After Tarot actually comes in a big box like this, and considering this was second hand and used, it's in perfect condition as far as I'm concerned, and that actually came with a big book, which is a really, really helpful book actually. I'm really, really pleased with this book. It's helped me kind of understand some of what's going on here anyway. So yeah, the Before Tarot came in a little tuck box and the After Tarot came in a big box as a kit, I think, with the big book. And if I continue to feel sort of stimulated by these decks as I do, I may well buy the Before Tarot kit as well, just so that I can have the book with it really. But anyway, there we go. So what we've got here is the Fool, and as I said, this is the Before Tarot, the normal tarot that we're used to seeing, the After Tarot, and the Tarot of the New Vision. And I've been sitting looking at these images on and off for a couple of weeks, and I just think it's brilliant, because normally all we see is this perspective, isn't it? We see the Fool about to step off the cliff, you know, carefree, tad naive, But that's all we see. We don't know what's around him. We don't know what led him to this place. I just really like seeing sort of the bigger picture, what's going on around these characters, because I think it really helps you to connect with them. So in the before tarot here, we have him, the Fool, chasing this dog. The dog, I think, in these tarot cards kind of represents maybe your animal instincts or even your conscience, actually. So we see him with his bag, which represents his past experience and his kind of karmic debt. We see him with his feather in his cap, which represents, I think, victory and success, his red feather. And we just see him focused really strongly on the roses here. And white roses, you know, traditionally represent purity, innocence, maybe even. So this is what the Fool is focused on, despite the warning barks of the dog here. He's still very, very focused on the roses. And then we see him having picked his rose and being very happy with himself. Walking along with his eyes closed, you know, completely unconcerned. This sole focus on the rose. You know, he's just sort of completely unconcerned, I suppose, isn't he? And then we see in the after tarot, he's actually fallen off the cliff. And even though his bag and everything is falling all around him, he's still just focused on the rose, on this symbolism of purity and innocence. What is really interesting, I think, is the Tarot of the New Vision here, where we can actually see that the Fool is perhaps even more foolhardy than we might have originally thought, because in front of him there is a volcano about to explode, with lava and fire and spewing ashes and all sorts of things into the air. So yeah, I think seeing the progression of these cards, and also actually that in front of him is this volcano, it kind of makes you think that the Fool might be even more foolhardy than we had originally thought, really, or just more lost in his own little world, I suppose. He's light, isn't he? Like the element of air, which is Uranus, who represents the Fool. He's just calm and unconcerned, isn't he? And, you know, that could well be a message to many of us about how we deal with impending difficult situations. Either that or he's just foolhardy. I'm not really sure. So let's take those off. And then underneath that we have the Magician. Hope I've got all these lined up nicely for you. So yeah, in the Magician, we can see all of the same symbology here. It's all here. The only thing that's different really is in the Before Tarot we have a monkey, and in the Tarot of the New Vision we have a monkey. But in the middle two cards we don't, do we? But pretty much everything else here. Well, obviously we also have some people in the Tarot of the New Vision here, but really what we're seeing in the Before Tarot is the Magician starting to take up his tools, really, I suppose. He has the sword in his hand, the cup is being given to him, the snake, which I'm trying to think of the word for that. It's a snake eating his own tail, isn't it? Uberus? Have I said that right? Uberus? He also has an infinity symbol, which shows that he's a powerful magician. He has his wand. The monkey has the pentacle. We've got roses, which represent passion. We've got lilies. I think they are, which would perhaps represent purity. Yeah. So in this first before tarot, we see him starting to take up the tools of his trade, I guess, really there. As we move into the middle card, the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, he's actually taken up his wand, and his wand has two ends to it, doesn't it? Which to me, I think I'm remembering this rightly. I think to me that would represent his focus and his will. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's perhaps what it is. I'm not really sure. And in the second card, we can see that the snake here has actually become the belt on his tunic, hasn't it? And also in the third card, in the after tarot here, we can see he's actually got a dove on his table here that he didn't have in the previous two cards either. And his implements, you know, his tools are now starting to be wielded, aren't they? We've got as above, so below. We've got his cup, his pentacle, his wand and his sword in the air, being manipulated by his force of will, I guess. But again, what I think is very interesting is in the Tarot of the New Vision at the end here, we see the monkey again, and the monkey is behind the magician. And we can see that the magician has an audience. You know, like people have come to see the show. And this card makes me think much more of that trickster energy of the magician, of like he's putting on a show, isn't he? He's trying to make people see what he wants them to see. So it would kind of beg the question, wouldn't it? What is the grand finale here? What's he gonna pull off that's gonna wow all of these people here, really? And I think the thing is he doesn't need these tricks, really, does he? Because, as I said, he's a powerful magician in his own right. But yeah, I just think that's really interesting, that sort of Mercury, Gemini kind of energy, that trickster energy, that the hand is quicker than the eye. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's about it for the magician. And then we've got the High Priestess. And there's not too many differences going on in these cards here, really. We've got, in the Before Tarot, we have an owl on top of the triple moon goddess crown here, because we can see the two crescents and the full moon there. We've got, what have we got? I think, do you know, I'm going to have a little read from the book for this one, because some of this symbology to do with the Kabbalah I often struggle with. So let's have a little read. I shall read you what it says in the guidebook to the After Tarot here, which is this one here. It says, she's an archetypal psychic which links her to the moon, the luminous orb of reflection and intuition. She's poised between two massive columns, one dark, one light. Between them a curtain is emblazoned with ripe pomegranates and tall palms. She wears a lunar headpiece with a representation of the waxing, full and waning moon. A cross hangs from the slender chain around her neck. She holds a rolled up scroll in her lap with 4 letters visible, which is the Torah. So the 2 columns of either side of the High Priestess represent the twin pillars of the Kabbalistic tree of life. So one is white, one is black, and together they symbolize the diametrically opposed concepts of mercy and severity, light and darkness, spirit and matter. They are Boaz, who was King David's great-grandfather, and Joachim, a high priest in King Solomon's temple. The The curtain suspended between the two columns represents the curtain that hang in the Temple of Solomon, and it is the veil between this world and the next. Only the High Priestess can penetrate that veil and see beyond its shimmering folds. So that's interesting, isn't it? The curtain is covered with palms and pomegranates, the symbols of male and female fertility. The scroll is a Torah, the Hebrew book of the law. It also says here the word Torah is an anagram for rota, which is the Latin word for wheel. And the letters can also be transposed to spell tota, which means all, and of course tarot. And you will see these letters again on the Wheel of Fortune. So we got the cross on the front of the High Priestess's gown is a solar cross, which is perfectly proportioned symbol of balance and equality. So yeah, not a lot of changes as we go through these cards. I think we can see her dress, which to me represents water. Her dress is kind of fluid, isn't it? And to me, it represents water, I think. And as we go through the cards, we see this water sort of starting to go over the moon here. And then as we get to the Tower of the New Vision, we can see that actually she sat in her temple in front of the sea, in front of a body of water, in front of a crescent moon. And we have the owl here again with the pomegranates, and I think the owl might represent wisdom, the pomegranates fertility, and we can see that she has her two kind of nuns or waiting ladies in the background as well, because I think this would fit with her position in life, that she is a high priestess and she's kind of royalty, I guess, in her own way, isn't she? So yeah, I thought not a lot of changes as we progress through the cards here, but interesting. We then have the Empress, and again, not a huge amount of difference between these, but what is interesting is in the first card there, she has children on her lap. The second card, we see her alone. The third card, she has swans and cygnets, babies. And in the new vision, we're seeing from that different perspective, and we see the children and the swans. So I think what we're seeing here is the wheat field that represents fertility and growth. I think the crown on her head is called a diadem, if I remember rightly, and it has 12 stars, which represent the astrology signs, the 12 signs of the zodiac. She has a symbol of femininity there. She's in a lush green valley, a sort of garden of earthly delights, which has wheat and cypress trees and the river flowing through it. It's kind of all there, isn't it? I think swans represent, or something to do with Venus, aren't they? The goddess Venus, the goddess of love. And to me, it's like all of the children and the swans, they're all here in the garden with the Empress, waiting. And I think as we look at the Tower of the New Vision again, it's like she's keeping them all safe within her garden here until they're ready to move on and progress and grow themselves. And then we see the path out of her garden and onwards. You know, obviously what I'm telling you here is not fact. These are merely my opinions. This is based on my thoughts and my research, and my readings over the years. So yeah, that's just my thoughts really about what's going on here, really. It's interesting, isn't it, when we don't actually see an obviously pregnant belly in any of these cards, like we do in some other tarot cards, but we see lots of fertility, and lots of that sort of nurturing energy of rearing young, I guess. So then we have the Emperor. How am I doing for time? I'm at 20 minutes, aren't I? See, I knew I'd bitten off much more than I could chew with these cards. I knew it would, I think naively in my head, I thought I could just sit down and show you all 4 decks. But anyway, there we go. I'll show a few more cards, I think. So the Emperor, these are interesting, aren't they? In the first card here, we see him with the sacrificial lamb, I think, really, on his shoulders. He's holding an ankh. Is that how you, an ankh, an ankh, an ankh? What else is there here with symbology? I think his throne is made of granite, and it just represents that 4, the number 4, which is solid and stable and grounding, isn't it? And while the Empress in the background had lush gardens and wheat fields, the Emperor has rocks and mountains in the background. But I think in the Radiant Wise here, we see a little bit of water, don't we, at the bottom of the card? And to me, this kind of represents the energy of the Empress, kind of trying to flow through and soften the energy of the Emperor. So yeah, as we move through the cards, we see that the lamb has grown into a ram. And to me, it's like both of these figures here are kind of sacrificial, if you like, because I think the Emperor would lay down his life for his family and his kingdom. He's protective in his energy, just in the same way as the lamb or the sheep, the ram here, could be sacrificed for a greater cause, I guess, in this world anyway. I think what else is here? So under his gown, he's wearing armor throughout. So I think, to me, that means that he's always ready. You know, he's ready and he's prepared to fight for his world, to fight for the people that he cares about. And when we look at the Tower of the New Vision, so we're seeing this from behind his throne, we can see that there's another stone effigy of him on the back of the throne, but in front of him are his people. You know, these could be his family, these could just be people within his kingdom, but I would guess they're his family. And again, to me, that's that kind of not nurturing, but protective energy of the Emperor. And in the last card here, we see a tortoise, don't we? And I actually had to, I mean, I know tortoises are slow and steady, but I actually Googled the symbology for a tortoise. And it just says wisdom, experience, long life, but also, very much like the Emperor wearing his armour, the tortoise is able to defend himself, I guess, with his shell, isn't he? So that's a similar kind of energy. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. I like that. Then we have the Hierophant, number 5. And do you know, I think I'm going to read from the book for the Hierophant, because again, this is not a card that has ever held a huge amount of interest for me, and it's not a card that I know all of the symbology and all of the bits and pieces, I suppose, like I would some of the other cards. So let's have a look at the book, see what it says. So it says the Hierophant is a symbol of traditional authority and influence. He's the head of a hierarchy to maintain his religious and cultural traditions. He can also symbolize teaching, inspiration, and revelation. So what we've got here going on in these cards is, in the before tarot, we can see the crown being placed upon the Hierophant's head. And I think this crown represents the sort of past, present, and future Also could represent like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The youth, the father, the sage, the maiden, the mother, the crone. It could represent all of those kind of symbols. The two crossed keys at the foot of the Hierophant there are the keys to wisdom as well as the keys to heaven. And we see those throughout, even on the Tower of the New Vision here at the end, where we're looking behind, and another stone effigy on the back of this throne here, but also this stone here with the keys and a lamb, it looks like again. He also holds a written key in his hand when we get to the After Tarot. It's kind of a spiritual guide, I think, this book here, to the mysteries of life and death. What else have we got here? The acolytes, which we can see throughout. These kind of monks here, one wearing roses and one wearing lilies. So again, we've got the passion, or the purity actually. We've got white roses here, haven't we? Red roses, red roses, red roses. So I'm going to go with the passion and the lilies to represent that purity. And when we get to the Tower of the New Vision, one of them has a dove and one of them has a snake. I mean, the snake could represent transformation and healing, I guess, and the dove, innocence and purity. I don't know. As I said, I'm not entirely sure about some of these things. These are just my thoughts as I'm looking at these things. So yeah, there's not a huge amount of change here in what we're actually seeing. It's just like the Hierophant is preparing for his role. He's sitting upon his throne. He's having the crown placed upon his head. I think this finger here, this hand movement here is like a benediction, isn't it? I vaguely remember that from something or other. And then he's holding up his book, which is the Book of Knowledge. And then we see things from the other side, and I'm not quite sure why his acolytes are now standing and why they have a dove and a snake. But, you know, obviously as I'm talking here, if any of this triggers anything in you or prompts any thought processes and you know what I'm looking at here, please do tell me in the comments. I would love to know. Then we have the Lovers. And I like these cards actually. This is, let's get them nice and straight. So in the Before Tarot here, we see Eve lying on the ground and we see Adam stood above her, offering a hand to help her up. And I think what these cards are showing us really is that while this is a card of lovers and relationships and that kind of duality, it's also a card of choices and consequences, isn't it? So obviously there's a thing going on here where Adam is sort of saying, would you like a hand up? And she's saying, oh, thank you, kind sir. And he's helped her up and they're now stood looking at each other. We've got the snake wrapped around the tree of knowledge, I think. I'm trying to remember. These are things I do know. I think this is the tree of knowledge and this is the tree of life. So the snake is still wrapped around the tree of knowledge here. And then we've got obviously the angel in the background with the sun. So then we get to the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith where Adam and Eve are kind of looking at each other, aren't they? They're kind of weighing each other up. And then as we get to the After Tarot, all of a sudden the Archangel here, which I think is Raphael, if I remember rightly also, he now has a sword And this is obviously the sword of righteousness, isn't it? This is the sword of consequences. And here we see that the snake has slithered down from the tree and is escaping before the consequence happens here, because I guess the snake has done his job in that temptation, hasn't he? And now we see Eve offering Adam the apple, which in obviously biblical terms was their downfall, wasn't it? And in the Tower of the New Vision, we can see from the opposite perspective from behind them, and we see their garden of earthly delights. We see the trees, we see the animals, we see the world that they once had, the world of innocence, I guess, and everything living in harmony. And obviously after Adam has eaten the apple, I guess, this cloud turns much darker, doesn't it? You know, I think this cloud that runs across here is a cloud of sort of, I don't know, it's all like a warning, isn't it? I think probably. So yeah, we've got we've got Eve there like, well, would you like a bite of my apple? And Adam's like, oh yes, please, thank you. And then they are cast out of the garden, aren't they, by the sword of righteousness here. So yeah, like I said, it's not just a card of duality and relationships, it's a card of choices and consequences. And we can see that quite strongly there, can't we? So then we have the Chariot. And again, this is a very interesting look. I like this. So this is sort of, the Chariot is sort of Cancer, isn't it? The crab, the creature that travels with his home on his back, and that's similar to the Chariot here, isn't it? And in the before tarot, we see all of the common symbols. We just see the charioteer getting into his chariot, sort of readying himself, I suppose. And then in the Rider-Waite-Smith, we see him take up his wand, perhaps that is. I don't know. He's got his crescent moons on his shoulder. He's got the sun emblem over his heart. I think this symbol here is something to do with male and female also. I can't remember what the wings, they're like Isis wings, aren't they? All the stars. You know, we've still got the same symbology going through all of these things. And then in the after tarot, we actually see the Sphinx-like creatures standing up. You know, he's pointing his wand at them. He's directing them with his force of will. He's got his hand on his heart. Yeah, so we see him kind of in these three cards preparing himself for movement, I guess. But what's really interesting again is in the Tower of the New Vision, we're seeing from the opposite angle, and we can see that not only is this chariot a vehicle of travel, but it's also a tool of war, isn't it? And of conquering. And here we can see what looks like the spoils of war, I suppose. We can see a man and a woman. And I guess they're not very happy at all from the look of sheer contempt on the man's face there as he looks over his shoulder. But it looks as if the charioteer here is returning as a sort of conquering hero, doesn't it? So not only is this a card of movement, this is a card of conquering the external world, I think. What else have we got here? So we've got strength. I think I'll go a couple more cards. Actually, I'll go to the Hermit. And I think that will do for this first video. So the strength card, again, not a huge amount of difference between these cards. In the first card, we see a woman like a kind of virgin bride, really. She looks in her white dress. She's barefooted. She's got the infinity symbol. She's got her roses and her lilies. And we've got quite a ferocious looking lion here. I think all these garlands of roses, they just represent that kind of spiritual wealth that she has here. In the second card, we see, we see her conquering the lion, don't we? But not using any kind of force of will, just a calm, determined action, I suppose. In the after tarot, we can see that the lion is really quite happy to have the woman embrace him there, and it's like they've become friends, isn't it? It's that conquering of, to me, really, these cards just represent a metaphor, I suppose, really, don't they, to describe the duality of our personalities. You know, the lion representing something more primal about us, and then the innocence of the virginal female here. So it's about conquering and balancing and integrating those dualities and those polarities within ourselves, isn't it? And then in the Tower of the New Vision, when we're looking at it from a different angle, there's a snake here that is about to perhaps creep under this woman's dress. I'm not sure what that might represent, because to me, snakes often represent transformation, rebirth. It could be that. Snakes can also represent something more evil, or a temptation of some kind, I suppose, as we saw in the Lovers. But I think this might be more of a rebirth type thing. But then, and this I don't know, if any of you do know who this is, I wish I had the big book that went with the Tower of the New Vision, because who is the statue on the hill? Who's the man with his big club, and what's the dragon? I don't understand that. I immediately thought of George and the dragon. But I don't really know why. I could even be right with that, but I don't really know why. I don't know who that is or why they're on the mountain. But yeah, interesting, hey? And then the last card I've got here to show you is the Hermit. And I think I'm going to read from the book for this one as well, because there's not a lot of difference, is there, in these cards? And I do like the Hermit very much, so I would like to do justice to that. Let's have a read. So it says, an old man stands on a snowy mountain peak. His beard is white and he seems to be studying something far beneath him. In one hand he holds a lantern high, and in the other he holds a long coiled serpent. So I'm reading from the book of the After Tarot, which is this one, obviously. And the snake is reminiscent of Moses' staff, which is what I think we see here in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. In the After Tarot here, we see a second shadowy companion, a massive black hound who gazes out at the world with the same cold and world-weary detachment we see in the face of his master. So high above the busy world below, the hermit reflects on spiritual concerns. He carries a lantern of wisdom, both to light his path and to serve as a beacon to others. The light in the hermit's lamp is a six-pointed star, like the Star of David and Solomon's seal. And historically, the shape symbolised the union of opposites, such as male and female, heaven and earth. And we see him in the Before Tarot here, taking the star and putting it in his lantern. And we see the snake coiled here, ready to be taken in hand as his staff. The black dog here has kind of thrown me a little bit, I suppose, because even with even with the explanation here of the dog. The shadowy hound is a guardian and protector, much like the canine sentries who stand at the gates of the underworld. Well, yeah, I get that, but I'm still not entirely sure why a black dog would be there with the Hermit. But there we go. Says early renditions of the card were also known as Time, and they depicted Saturn, also known as Father Time, and he was holding an hourglass. So, and then in the Tarot of the New Vision, where we're sort of looking from behind him, we see a black snake crawling along, about maybe to go under his cloak. And again, why have we got the green snake, a black dog, and then a black snake? Does the snake represent that symbology of rebirth and transformation yet again? Because obviously the Hermit is very introspective and is on the path of spiritual growth. So I don't really know. So again, if any of you know these things, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you anyway, your thoughts and feelings about this and what I've shown you today. Would you like me to continue to work my way through the deck? Or is this enough of a look at these combinations of cards? Or should I do another video where I've perhaps picked out my favourites, the most interesting, combinations of these cards? Please do let me know in the comments what you think, and I will have a think about it myself. And I would like to do some more with these decks because I think they're fascinating, actually. And as I said, I really do enjoy that we're seeing this card that I've been gazing at really since I was 21, that we're seeing it from different perspectives. I'm really quite enjoying that. So do let me know what you think, and I shall hopefully see you all again soon. Thank you.